What happens when a top AAA executive producer, someone who has launched global superstars, shaped billion-dollar franchises, and witnessed hundreds of great performances, says SB19's ACON 2025 stage changed how he sees Asian pop forever? This wasn't fan hype. This wasn't media exaggeration. This was an industry insider dropping a bombshell that stunned veterans, insiders, and even SB19's own peers. Because when someone at that level speaks, careers shift. Narratives change. Doors open. Tonight, we break down what he revealed, why it mattered, and why ACON 2025 may be remembered as the moment SB19 crossed into legacy territory. Subscribe if you want context before headlines, not after. In the global music industry, there are levels of power that most fans never see, and this executive producer sits firmly at the top. AAA level doesn't mean famous. It means decisive. These are the people who approve stadium tours before tickets exist, who manage artists with global logistics teams, who sign off on productions that cost more than most films. When they speak, entire teams move. What matters most is this: they don't talk unless there's a reason. At this level, praise is currency. Every public comment is measured, filtered, and often avoided altogether. Silence is the default. Compliments are private. Public admiration? Almost unheard of. That's why this moment landed so hard. When someone who has seen thousands of polished performances, who has watched legends rise, peak, and fall, chooses to speak openly about a group, it signals something rare. Not excitement. Not novelty. Recognition. Industry insiders immediately understood the subtext. This wasn't emotional hype or courtesy praise. This was a professional acknowledgement that something had crossed a threshold. So the real question isn't what he said about SB19. It's why now. Because whatever he witnessed at ACON 2025 didn't just impress him. It challenged his expectations of what a global-ready act looks like. From the outside, ACON 2025 looked like another major fan-driven event: loud crowds, flashy stages, viral moments. But behind the scenes, it functioned as something very different: an industry pressure chamber. Events like ACON quietly attract scouts, producers, promoters, and investors who don't wear badges or announce themselves. They stand in the crowd, arms crossed, watching details fans don't notice: crowd control, pacing, vocal stability, command. This is where careers are evaluated, not celebrated. The conditions are unforgiving. Short set times. Mixed audiences. International acts with wildly different fan bases. No second chances. No editing. No safety net of loyal crowds who already know the lyrics. Festivals expose weaknesses fast. That's why artists fear them. Every decision matters: which song opens, how energy is managed, how silence is handled between beats. One misstep, and momentum collapses. Many artists do fine at ACON. They perform, they leave, they're forgotten. SB19's slot was especially risky. High visibility, high expectations, and an audience that wasn't guaranteed to be theirs. This wasn't a home crowd, it was a test. And here's the truth insiders know well. Most artists survive ACON. Very few dominate it. There's a moment in live events that can't be rehearsed: the instant when a room decides whether to pay attention. At ACON 2025, that moment happened the second SB19 stepped on stage. The noise didn't explode. It changed. Conversations faded. Phones lifted higher. Eyes locked forward. Something in the air recalibrated. Industry veterans noticed it immediately. They don't cheer. They observe. They watch posture, how artists claim space before a single note is sung. They watch synchronization, how fast the crowd responds, how tightly energy snaps into focus. They watch transitions, because transitions reveal confidence. And SB19 didn't rush a single one. The opening seconds weren't loud or theatrical. They were controlled. Every movement had intention. Every pause felt owned, not accidental. That's a rare skill, especially on a shared festival stage where artists often overcompensate with volume and speed. What stood out was discipline. Clean lines. Calm faces. No wasted motion. SB19 performed like artists who expected the audience to follow, and the audience did. That's command. Somewhere in the crowd, the executive producer clocked it instantly. Not as a fan. Not as a critic. But as someone who recognizes hierarchy. The thought wasn't dramatic. It was precise. This doesn't feel like a guest act. This feels like a headliner. Talent gets attention. Structure earns respect. And what separated SB19 at ACON 2025 was everything most viewers never consciously see. Song sequencing wasn't random. Each track escalated energy without exhausting it, allowing momentum to build instead of spike and collapse. Tempo control was deliberate. Fast enough to excite, measured enough to preserve vocals. That balance is learned through touring, not rehearsals. Then there was breath management. Live vocals stayed stable not because of backing tracks, but because movement was designed around breathing. Choreography didn't fight the music, it supported it. Every step accounted for stamina, spacing, and recovery. This wasn't choreography for cameras. It was choreography for survival on stage. Industry producers noticed that immediately. Because they've watched brilliant artists burn out mid-tour. They know that viral performances don't translate automatically into sustainable careers. Structure does. SB19 performed like artists who understand the long game. They weren't chasing moments, they were building flow. They weren't reacting to the crowd, they were guiding it. That's why the performance felt expensive without being flashy. Polished without being stiff. Alive without being chaotic. By the final transition, the realization was clear to anyone watching professionally. SB19 wasn't just performing. They were executing a system. And systems are what global careers are built on. The statement didn't come from a stage or a press release. It surfaced where real evaluations happened, backstage, after the lights cooled and the noise faded. Surrounded by other professionals, the executive producer replayed the performance not emotionally, but analytically. What he said next traveled fast. He didn't call SB19 amazing. He didn't say they were exciting. Those words mean nothing at this level. Instead, he used phrases that made people pause. Global ready. Export quality. Rare discipline. In the industry, those aren't compliments. They're classifications. Global ready means an act can be placed on international stages without modification. No cultural cushioning. No format changes. Export quality means the product travels musically, visually, operationally. And rare discipline is perhaps the most telling phrase of all. It signals reliability under pressure, consistency across shows, and professionalism that survives touring fatigue. These are words producers reserve for acts they can trust with money, logistics, and reputation. The people listening understood immediately. This wasn't casual admiration. It wasn't even evaluation anymore. It was reframing. The producer wasn't praising SB19 for what they did that night. He was positioning them for where they could be placed next. The reaction was quiet. But fast. No applause. No public posts. Instead, phones came out. Messages were sent. Names were dropped into private conversations. In this world, momentum doesn't trend, it circulates. Within hours, SB19 wasn't just remembered as a strong act at ACON 2025. They became a topic. Executives compared notes. Choreographers discussed endurance and staging. Creative directors replayed transitions in their heads. Not to admire, but to assess. This is how industry validation actually looks. Comments moved through WhatsApp groups and after-parties. Short sentences. No emojis. They're ready. Surprisingly tight. Didn't crack under pressure. Each remark added weight. Because when veterans independently reach the same conclusion, it stops being opinion. There's a massive difference between applause and professional curiosity. Applause fades. Curiosity lingers. It leads to questions. Can they scale this? Can they tour? Can they adapt to different markets without losing identity? SB19 triggered those questions. And once an act enters that phase, they're no longer being judged as performers, they're being evaluated as assets. That's when conversations shift from, "Did you see them?" to, "What could we do with them?" And that's where deals begin. Most idol performances succeed because of energy and loyalty. Fans arrive ready. The room already belongs to the artist. In those conditions, momentum is borrowed, not built. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's how fandom works. But professionals watch for something else. They watch how an artist performs when the room is undecided. When half the crowd is neutral. When attention has to be earned, not assumed. That's where SB19 separated themselves at ACON 2025. Their command didn't depend on cheers. Their pacing adjusted to the crowd in real time. They knew when to push, when to pull back, and when to let silence work. That kind of audience intelligence can't be taught quickly, it comes from experience and awareness. Adaptability mattered just as much. Small stage or massive arena, SB19's performance logic holds. Their movements scale. Their vocals travel. Their presence doesn't shrink when space expands. That's critical, because international careers aren't built in controlled environments. Producers value artists who survive difficult rooms. Mixed crowds. Skeptical listeners. Because if you can hold those rooms, you can hold any room. SB19 proved that their performance doesn't rely on circumstance. It relies on control. And that's how careers last. In music history, there are moments artists recognize only later, inflection points. One stage. One audience. One night that quietly shifts everything. Not because it went viral, but because the right people were watching. Many global careers trace back to these moments. An unexpected festival slot. A late-night performance. A showcase where an artist wasn't supposed to dominate but did. Those performances don't explode immediately. They redirect trajectories. ACON 2025 has all the markers of that kind of moment for SB19. The timing was exact. They weren't early. They weren't untested. They arrived fully formed vocally, structurally, mentally. Their maturity matched the room. Their readiness matched the stakes. And crucially, their performance aligned with what the industry is currently searching for: reliability, scalability, and global adaptability. This wasn't potential being noticed. It was readiness being confirmed. That's the difference. When an artist hits an inflection point too early, opportunity outruns capability. When it happens too late, momentum stalls. SB19 met theirs at precisely the right time. Some performances create memories. Others create momentum. And a few rare ones unlock doors that were previously invisible. For years, Asian acts entering global markets were framed through a narrow lens: novelty, niche appeal, or regional success. Producers adjusted expectations. Labels adjusted strategies. The question was often how to package them, not whether they were ready. ACON 2025 disrupted that thinking. SB19 wasn't evaluated as an Asian act. They were evaluated as an act, period. Their performance met the same standards applied to any global artist: endurance, command, scalability, and consistency under pressure. No cultural allowances. No lowered benchmarks. That shift matters. Global producers are no longer asking, "Will this translate internationally?" They're asking, "Can this survive globally?" That's a higher bar, and SB19 cleared it. For future Asian acts, this changes the conversation. The pathway forward isn't about representation or token inclusion. It's about preparation, structure, and execution. SB19 demonstrated that when those elements are present, geography becomes irrelevant. This is how industries evolve, not through statements, but through proof. When one act performs at a level that forces re-evaluation, standards recalibrate. What happened at ACON 2025 wasn't symbolic. It was structural. This wasn't representation. It was validation. Strip away the noise, the clips, the reactions, and what remains is a clear sequence. An elite observer entered ACON 2025 with no obligation to be impressed. He watched without bias, without fandom, without expectation. What followed wasn't applause or enthusiasm, it was a measured, unfiltered reaction shared among professionals. That reaction spread. Quietly. Quickly. Conversations shifted. Evaluations changed. SB19 moved from strong performers to serious consideration. That's not hype. That's recognition. SB19 didn't ask to be validated. They didn't chase approval. They focused on preparation, discipline, and execution. And when the moment arrived, they delivered at a level that spoke for itself. If you missed ACON 2025, you didn't just miss a performance. You missed the moment a line was crossed from regional success to global credibility. These moments don't announce themselves. They reveal themselves later, when opportunities align and narratives change. And if you value real industry insight, not fan noise, like, subscribe, and stay here. Because this channel doesn't chase hype. We break it before it becomes history.